Yeah, special good evening. Good evening to all our Têkkel Chat family, and good evening, Alberic. You look a bit down tonight. Good to have you back on this Thursday.
Lekker nie, ja, nee, kyk, ek voel seker soos baie ouens daar buite wat gedink het miskien dit is 'n double World Cup die jaar, maar it's just not meant to be, eh? And yeah, it's one of those things. But yeah, we're here and we live to fight another day.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the expectations was there for the Proteas to go further, but I think the semi-final for me, as a fan itself, a very realistic fan, I think they did us proud, at least to get to the semi-final. I cannot wish to put them further than that. I think they've proven for many a year that these types of tournaments perhaps one step too far when they do get to the playoffs. It's been a movie that we've seen over and over and over again, and it didn't fail to disappoint once again. Yes, we are disappointed, but certainly for the Proteas to have played, a very strange round robin. It's not a custom in tournaments like this that each and every team play each and every one. We've seen it in the past where they play in pool competitions, but the Proteas did well, and I think based on their performances in the round robin competition, we thought we were one of the better sides at this tournament, and perhaps we can go all the way to get to the final. It was always going to be India, as the favorites to reach the final, but we really thought the Proteas had an outside chance to make the final, not to be.
Yeah, no, for sure, Annie. Yeah, no, it's another tough one to swallow, eh, after another 4-year cycle. Devil, how's it? Thanks for joining in. I was saying also, how's it to Leonardo of Nardo Suso again? Yeah, no, it's a tough one. Eh? It's I think my first love of sport was this 12 or 13-year-old watching cricket, and it was 92 World Cup, and the heartache that came with it, and and it happened 96 again, and 99 and 2003. Every World Cup had this issue. I think the only World Cup where we all like, nah, you know what, there's even like was 2019 when the Proteas were absolutely dismal. They were really bad, and yes, I mean, hats off to them. They really kind of put together some good performances, one or two very odd performances against the Netherlands, of course, and then just looking at the India game as well, they lost pretty badly, and I think it's just sad to see. We look at the way they've come through the tournament. They've beat all other teams so convincingly. I think the closest game of all was probably the Pakistan game, which they won by 1 wicket. But everything else, all the other games were pretty well played. They really amassed good big scores, batting first especially, and also I think the batters really came to the fore in this World Cup, and our bowlers as well. I mean, you take a hat off to the Markov and Janssen and the new guy Gerald. What was his name? Gerald Kuchia. I say young guys that are really putting their hand up and wanting to be accounted for. And I mean, you can see the results really well. They played really well throughout this tournament. Besides that one glitch, I would say, against the Netherlands, and they could have had a almost faultless tournament. I know the Indians are always going to be strong at home, especially when there's always talks about them, putting their own pitches together, and it's almost one of those cases yesterday where you could see where the Indians they just took a liking to what the pitch had to offer for them batting first.
Yeah, no, I think when the fixtures came out, I think we spoke about it, and we said that if the Proteas do get away with a good start, especially looking at that Sri Lanka Australian games, we knew that they would be in with a chance, especially having to play Pakistan, New Zealand, and India specifically very late in the tournament. You would have thought that if they get away with a proper start, you would have backed them to beat the Netherlands, which they didn't. But then they went on to beat England handsomely. And they went on to beat Pakistan. They won handsomely against England. And taking that loss against India away, we said on the show that they should now go on to play in the semi-final, and they really closed it out in fine fashion. Almost closing it out in such a way that they were high and dry with still a few other games to play. It was all about who will they play in the semi-final, a few results going our way. And out of all the teams that would have qualified, I would have preferred, in any case, to have played Australia. But like I said, you always wait for that implosion from the Protea side. It's never far away. It's always about they don't implode tomorrow or the day after. It will come soon. They are just not consistent enough in the big games. We've even seen in series against Australia where they lost handsomely and they had to scramble to win the series. That is the nature and the DNA of this Protea side. It's something that they need to shake off. And a lot of people is talking about team selections now. Perhaps it's not team selections only. Perhaps we are just not there psychologically to go out there and win the big tournaments, to win the big series. Perhaps we still have a lot to learn in that case.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. I think we spoke about it also a while, I think off, in the week as well, just, on the side and even before tonight's show. Ek het baie krities gewees oor sekere spelers, but al een speler, and we'll talk about them a bit later, but I think there's something in our DNA when it comes to rugby that the rest of the world acknowledges that when South Africa has to play in a knockout game in a Rugby World Cup, we switch on. There's no easy game against the Springboks in a World Cup, and that's for sure. Because, and we look at the way the fans respond, it's almost an expectancy, and it's a massive pressure on the box to kind of handle that. Is the fact that they have to then carry the weight of a nation to say that they are carrying the hopes of a team that did so well in 1995, and that is why the years after that, it was difficult for the coaches to kind of manufacture that kind of same spirit. Rassie did that fantastically. I think Rassie did that well with his setup, picking the right players, making a big call. Or let's see it as a big call, picking Sia as the first black captain to captain the Springboks, and then Sia leading from the front in that regard. And there's this expectancy. The Proteas, on the other hand, don't have that. They go into every World Cup with that luggage. It's just unfortunate. You can talk about the C word and all that as why they could have failed, but they carry that baggage that there's not a lot of expectancy. And let's be honest, you watch the game and you're like, let's see where this is going to go. And you don't have that hope. And I almost want to take it up to it's a psychological thing. Like you mentioned, it's a psychological thing that I think SA cricket needs to handle. And I mean, we don't want to necessarily throw the bath out with the kid, but there's a lot of rights and wrongs that I think SA cricket is not doing, or wrongs at least that they are doing. And they can learn from rugby, for example, and what they are doing. And I think that is where that disconnect is between, the cricket and the fan base is at the moment. I think that's the problem. And I don't think they necessarily carry that same grit that the rugby players have.
Yeah, no, I think throughout the tournament, I think Nathan also just greeting us tough luck, Proteas. Yeah, you see, I'm at that stage now, and I've listened and read a lot of stories about what the real reason is, and I think my love-hate relationship with this Protea side is not one of over expecting anything from the side. I watch the game, I enjoy it, and I expect anytime, especially you look at the side and why they did so well, or let's not say did so well, why they performed beyond my expectations. I was watching these games, and each and every time Quinton de Kock gets away, gets on a flyer, gets to a century, gets to 70, 80, and then all of a sudden everything falls into place. You have Rassie van der Dussen that can take his time. Heinrich Klaasen comes in, tafel is gedek. Hy moet net mes en vurk vat. A guy like David Miller playing out of his skin. And then the last 10 overs, Jansen comes in, swings the willow, gets a few runs. And I was sitting there and I was asking myself, when will the time come where we will see Quinton de Kock fails and now either Aiden Markram, Rassie van der Dussen, Heinrich Klaassen, David Miller needs to play a match-winning performance. We saw David Miller today playing a proper innings, but he scored half of the team's runs. Where were the other guys to chip in? Yeah. And it's very easily now, and what I'm reading is a lot of people saying, Themba Bavuma, he got the duck, he shouldn't have been playing. Fair enough. Should he have been selected for the side? Perhaps on form not. It becomes a little bit more tricky when he's your captain. So now the debate is, we've selected him, he gets out for no runs, but we still managed to score 212 runs only, with one of the guys scoring 100 and something of those runs. So my question is, where is Rassie van der Dussen? Where is Aiden Markram? Where is Heinrich Klaassen? Where are the rest of the players when we do need them to get onto the bigger stage with the lights on, lights, camera, action? We tend to just crumble under the pressure. And yes, I do believe if you look at that batting lineup right down to Jansen, this team can really go toe-to-toe with a lot of teams.
Yeah.
But I think they are just too dependent on variables that need to go their way. They need a proper start, Quinton to get a few runs, Rassie to get into the 30s. All of a sudden, Heinrich can hit a few long balls. But cricket is such a game that there are a few things that can go against you, and then you need to adapt. And I don't think that this Proteas team is as flexible as they should be as one-day global leaders.
No, sure, and now I again sit on the other side of the fence again, and where you look at a team's performance, and you first look at either it's the coach or it's the captain, and what the strategy was going into this game. You had overcast conditions, you had perfect bowling conditions. I know we bat well, and it's always hindsight's a perfect science. We could have said, we could have sent the Aussies into bat, and we could have had them bowler for 150. That could be a totally different scenario. But you look at the captain and you look at his performance, and I sit there, I'm thinking, but Markham did perform at stages during the World Cup. Klaassen performed at stages in the World Cup. Quinton, Miller, etc. The batting lineup performed when it was called upon. And when you needed a captain's innings, it should have happened today. That is where I sit on the other side of the fence, that a guy like Themba, he had some great knocks. He really hasn't shown over the past few. He might have gone to the World Cup with probably a better batting average than some, but he was out of form. He struggled with the injury. It was just a game to say, what, I'll take one for the team in this regard, and you respect that from a captain. So in my side of where I'm sitting on this side of the fence, I'm just not I don't think Themba's not the man to lead. I think this Proteas side, they need somebody like a Graeme Smith to come in, young guy or not, just to come in and say, what, guys, we are gonna take us to the next level. Graeme Smith did that, when he took over as a young 20-year-old, 21-year-old captain. You need somebody to come in without any baggage and taking the Proteas to the next level. And unfortunately, the Proteas standards have been not the greatest of the last 4 or 5 years, that we're picking players that are not necessarily the greatest player. And I think, when you look at the Proteas side, you probably would, Themba mightn't be your first player you would pick based on form, going to World Cup, and based on his overall, performance over the period that he's played. And I think, I feel for a guy like Riese Hendricks. I mean, he sat on the sidelines during the years of AB de Villiers, and rightfully so. AB was, the team of AB and Hashim and Faf du Plessis were phenomenal. I mean, Jacques Callis, and nobody could actually, bat against. I mean, any player would be sitting on the bench or be lucky to be in a squad with those guys. But you feel for him going to this World Cup. He would have been a player that would have reached a position like this, going to a game and actually been able to show his mettle. And I just feel I'm on the other side of the fence saying, Themba's not our guy.
No, I think what the question should be, should he have played in today's game? That is debatable. And I don't believe a captain would put up his hand and select himself.
Yeah, of course.
My question is, having down to hear that if Temba didn't play, we would have won this game. That is a flaw in our logic. Yes, perhaps, Temba not being fit. Going into this game, I heard on certain news. I didn't get the pre-match commentary, but there's a lot of rumors that he disclosed that he is not 100% fit going into this game.
Yeah.
I don't believe that Themba Bavuma would have put up his hand and say, guys, I'm here for selection. I believe that he went through a few tests, and there was a call from the coaching staff and selectors that Themba should play. Was that the correct decision? In our mind, perhaps no. You do play guys in form. Becomes a little bit tricky when it's your captain. However, you cannot blame Themba Bavuma for this team's implosion for only making 200 runs in a World Cup semi-final. Then I'm slightly missing the point. And I'm with you saying, going into this semi-final, there should have been a lot of considerations and a lot of talk. Who do we select? Should we omit our captain and then perhaps give the captain's armband to Aiden Markram, Miller? We had Quinton de Kock there. Perhaps even a guy like Kagiso Rabada, or a player such as Keshav Maharaj, who's done it before. Can they captain the side? So those should have been the discussions, I believe. We are at this point now where we're looking back and saying, there was so much promise. Young bowlers, you mentioned a few, and we saw the two spinners in tandem almost giving us a sniff in the end. We had the team. But again, I think the problems here is more psychological than it is selection-wise. It's just a question of, they call it BMT, big match temperament. I think they have a serious problem when it comes to that.
No, absolutely. And just to your point on that BMT, and again, you look at, let's not compare. Rugby and cricket is totally different, guys. But BMT in any match is BMT. The Aussies have BMT. They know when to switch it on. They lost the first 2 games of this World Cup, and they ended up winning 8 in a row. I mean, that just shows what they have. They have that brain memory of knowing that I need to switch on when the time counts, and they did that today. But you look at, a Sam Cane going to a quarterfinal against the Irish, and knowing that this is the game that's going to make or break their tournament. And Sam Cane gave his best performance probably ever. And yes, cricket's a very finicky thing. One mistake, you're out for a duck. But when you need it to be switched on, this is the game that you need somebody to step in, somebody to kind of take the game by the scruff and kind of play the captain's innings. And like I said, you can't blame Themba. Everybody failed. I mean, at 24 for 2, your top order is out. Your top order failed. But he hasn't produced throughout this tournament. And I think there will be a lot said about his performances. And maybe the burden of a captaincy is what is needed. And I think rightfully so, if he is the captain, you wanted him to kind of get rid of the choker's tag once and for all. You look at a team like the previous, I think 2015 World Cup, we probably had our best team ever, and we still managed to fail. And that's the nature of cricket. But yeah, a lot can be said about that selection. I don't know what it is. I don't know why we ended up choosing a player that himself before the game, being uncertain as your captain in the pre-match interview, I think after the coin toss, if I'm not mistaken, saying that I'm not 100% fit, but we have to do with it. That just tells me that psychologically, maybe he was in the right space in the first place. And that says a lot for a captain leading a side. What does that say to your players? What does it say to your team? And my question is, what does Themba bring to a team when the team is 24 for 4? And that's my question. I don't think, if you had somebody inspirational, a Hansie Grenier or a Graham Smith back in the day, even a Sean Pollock, I think they would have probably been able to rally the guys. I don't see Themba Bavuma being that guy, rallying the guys up at 24 for 4 and say, guys, listen, we have to pull out one out the hat here. And that's just and to your point, you're 100% right. We can't blame this one performance on one player. It's unfair towards Themba. although, like I said, there's a lot of players that should be putting their hands up and saying, we made a mistake, we didn't pull one through. Virgil Rule saying team effort that faltered. No, 100%. I think there's a lot that can be said. I think the first opening bowlers, I think, went for like 60 runs of, something like 6 overs or 7 overs, if I'm not mistaken. I think by that time already, you were like, we're going to always be.
Yeah, we're under the
pump, yeah. Nathan Ankom saying, totally agree regarding Riza Hendricks. Very good cricketer. Yeah, for sure. He should feel, we're unlucky about this. He should feel unlucky. I think not only this, I think his career, he just timed that at the wrong time. When he wanted to, when him playing at the time when all these good cricketers were ahead, and then, not making the team because a captain is out of form.
Yeah, and I do recall him playing in a game in the World Cup and making good runs. I'm not sure against who. He scored a half century, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Really, Riza should count himself very unlucky to not be in that side and perhaps opening the batting with Quentin de Kock for a longer period. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Time to reward form. We need fearless batsmen at the top two. I think, I do believe, and we are not part of the squad. If there was a more clear-cut captain, or let's call it a substitute captain, and a lot of people are reading that it was Aiden Markram during Themba Bavuma's injury. It was Aiden Markram, if I'm not mistaken, to take over. Yeah. But I almost read in between the lines here, and the question, Beriket, you asked, why would a selector and a coach select a captain that would, on the day of the game, in a pre-match interview, disclose that he's not 110% or not 100%, but we need to do. Why would that happen? And I think the only reason is that I believe that they are unsure about the captaincy abilities of the rest. That can only be the only reason. There is no other reason why you would push in a Themba Bavuma under serious pressure, out of form, and perhaps disclosed by himself, not even 100% fit. Surely there must be other considerations. And I think I'm leaning towards, and I'm using my common sense here. Why would that happen? Because you have all the technology, you have the fitness gurus in your side to tell you, listen, this guy is not 100%. Why would you push that? And I have this, thinking that it might be a situation that they don't entrust all the other guys with captaincy. That is the only reason I think that would be the case.
Yeah, very good point, Aini. We could think of Aiden being captain. I don't think anybody else that would really, put their hand up. Quentin obviously can't do that. We've seen him, having the captaincy and his performances didn't match. So very good point. It would be a scenario where you would wonder who would be that guy to do it. But doesn't that show the state of our cricket? I think we in such a, even though our performances, and to your point, we actually perform way better than what we should have. We perform if you look at the previous World Cup, far beyond expectations. We got to the semi-final. Well done, Proteas. You did well with a team that was kind of going under the radar going into this World Cup. But then you have, in the pressure situation, I think the stats are, I think we won the Aussies 15 out of the last, including today's game, I think 15 out of 19 games. I mean, that says a lot. I mean, the teams of old would have struggled. But if you look at the makeup of the best pro teams we've had multiple leaders in the team. We've had multiple guys that a Faf du Plessis could have spoken to. It would have been a Hashim Amla. It would have been a A.B. de Villiers. There was multiple guys that he could have turned to and lent on just knowledge on what to do in a certain situation, whether it's on the field or off. And that doesn't really come through in this team. There's a team of some good players. I don't think, to your point, I don't think it's a team of leaders and like senior leaders. Look at the Aussies, for example. They've got Steve Smith. They've got David Warner, they got Cummins, all these guys that are leaders in their own right, and they know when they need to turn it on. And I think that is our battle at the moment, is that we got to have a good team that made some fantastic performances. Look at what the Indians done in yesterday's game. Virat hit another 100 again. When it matters, he switches it on, and I think we just don't have that at the moment. We don't have a captain that can do that at all, and I don't think we have necessarily the players, because we're sitting with baggage that we're carrying over. I'm sitting with baggage since 1992.
Yeah, no, I think we hope that, in our lifetime they do shake it off.
Yeah, yesterday.
But for another 4 years, we will be speaking about the Proteas. We don't want to call them choking, but again, getting to a point where they just get the nation behind them, getting us to believe it might be our chance, and then falling way short. So yeah, we would want to hear from you, but we're saying the Proteas doing it again and leaving ourselves disappointed. But in hindsight, great performance by them throughout the tournament. There could have been a few better performances, especially the one against Netherlands, and then the one against Afghanistan, where they perhaps had almost stumbled. But I think throughout out the round robin games did very, very well. And then they left the worst for last today, playing against Australia. One to forget. But in all, to be fair, I think they played well. But once again, we just wish that they get that temperament to get over the last hurdle. And hopefully, like the Springboks did, one day they will bring that ICC Cricket World Cup home. We know that they have the potential. It's all about just switching on to the big tournaments. But for now, we will lick our wounds for another 4 years, and hopefully we'll build a stronger side going into the next ICC World Cup.
One comment, and this might be a controversial one. You have all these. We have phenomenal bowlers. I think we've had over the years. You had the Dales and the Mornays and Alan Donalds and all that. These guys are coaching other teams. I think it's sad to see. You sit there and you watch. You're playing against Bangladesh and you see Alan Donald sitting there, and Alan Donald hops from one team to the next. That's, being the nature of what his coaching is. But if you put your hand to shoulder the wheel, I think there's something needed in SA cricket, whether it's a revival, whether it's something needed in terms of the experience that, was that we had from back in the day. Maybe that is needed in our camp. Maybe we need those guys that has been there and say, listen, this is what you're going to be facing. We didn't make it. We need a Zulu there. We need a Dale Steyn there. We need all these guys that have made some difference in the World Cup before. We need them to maybe possibly stand up. Maybe that's something that could help. Instead of sitting and watching Morning Mokel sit on the side of who's Morning playing for, he's helping the Afghanistan or some, you know what I mean? And you think to yourself, the Proteas could need that. And whether it's a bigger lying issue here, guys, whether it's a cricket that has some kind of issue, which is probably a topic for another day. But there's IP that's there. There's intellectual property that we can lean on. And it's just sad to see it another time. And well done for coming back after 24 for 4. If you look at all the other teams in the past, the team of 2007 was 25 for 5. 27 for 5 against the Aussies, also in the semi-final, and they bombed out. I think they made like 118. The Proteas at least, this team at least put up a fight at least, which is fantastic to see. But I shudder to think with Miller towards the end of his career, Quentin de Kock, falling by the wayside. Rassie van der Dusen, won't be around too long. Where are we going to find that?
You guys need to come through now.
We're going to have to bring that new guys coming through. And if it's a matter of losing the next 4 years and building for the World Cup, we need a Rassie kind of strategist coming in and doing it. And hopefully that brings some. Richard would say, lekker Bosbrothers nodig tussen Saro and cricket, South Africa. Proteas will lose more sponsors. Yeah, that's for sure. It's a problem. I think the sponsor of this World Cup was an Indian company
Indian
that sponsored them. The India brand that helped them out. So a lot to be said, guys. We all very passionate about them, and we love them, and we really wish they could have pulled this one through. I think that they really did. I think that if they did this one, I think they would have been a real shot at the Indians, as good as the Indians are. I've seen the Proteas of old really putting some big scores up against the Indians if we had to face them going in the final. But yeah, we'll never know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll take this one on the chin. But nonetheless, we wish them well, and we hope that they can go forward and hopefully, in 4 years' time, build another team that can go all the way. Leaving the Proteas, Alberic, World Rugby also had their say this week, and obviously we need to just speak about that. With us obviously being our head officers of SA Rugby being burgled and everything, World Rugby somehow, I'm not sure how they did it, but they leaked some information that the try that the All Blacks scored and which was disallowed should have been allowed, and that obviously made the media. It still boggles my mind how something like that gets out into the media.
Yeah.
Where did they say it? To whom did they say it? Is it something that is bogus? Or did World Rugby make an official statement, which I missed? But I do read in all of the media, especially the New Zealand media and the UK media, saying that the try that the All Blacks scored, I think it was the one that Aaron Smith scored, that try in terms of process should have stood. And that would have obviously made a big difference in the result of the game.
Oh, yeah. Difficult one, eh? I was watching another podcast earlier in the week, and a very good comment was made when one of the journalists was saying that at that moment when Wayne Barnes made that decision, looking at the screen, went back, even though it was 4 phases, the rule book says 2 phases, after 2 phases can stand. Going back to that, he stood there in a World Cup final. He saw it happen. If you had to go the other way, could you imagine the amount of backlash at that moment? Where it would have been probably more controversial than not. So in that moment, and I think you bring the humanness, the human side into rugby. He made the correct decision for that moment. And yes, there was a knock-on, and technically it would have stood if from a law book point of view. But yeah, it's a tricky one, eh? And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Just to add to that, Aini, if I'm not mistaken, the try that followed, was it also from the same position?
The try that they did score eventually.
They did score, yeah, because I know they got a penalty.
That now they said it's perhaps a little bit forward or whatever.
Forward, yeah, but that try, didn't that try happen? Say again?
It came from a different play.
But wasn't also from position? Because remember they had a penalty that they actually from that line out, because it was I think Eben knocked Brodie Retallick's hand, and even though it was a knock-on, that penalty was still given to the All Blacks, because he made again to the point of Wayne Barnes. He almost chose the lesser of it and going with giving the penalty to the All Blacks at that moment. But the subsequent 1 or 2 plays from there, I think the try was scored, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you are correct. But I think World Rugby now needs to look at their rule book and understand that their laws are set up in such a way that they neutralize the use of technology by applying only a protocol that allows a referee to go back 2 or 3. They're talking about 2 phases in this scenario, but let's say 2 to 3 phases. My logic tells me that if you apply technology, you must be able to use the technology to come to the right conclusion. Now, if you're going back, and I can tell you that Wayne Barnes saw the incident, because if you can remember him commenting to his to the players, but also to his ARs, which is assistant referees, he still called a play on, which means he saw something, but in his mind it was not a knock on. So he had 2 options. It's either I stop the game and rule something that I'm unsure of. But I think the technology must allow the referee to play on, and if something substantial comes from that, you must be able to go back to wherever that incident was and use technology to assess
100%.
whether I've made a correct call, whether it is
100%.
foul play, whether it is a transgression, or whether in this case a knock-on, which it was a very tricky one. Ari knocking the ball into someone else and then the ball jumping back into his hands. So yes, according to the rule book,
I agree.
that try should have stood.
Mm.
Then we need to agree that according to the rule book, the All Blacks should have scored a legal try from a knock-on, which obviously puts a huge spotlight on your protocols. You can't have a protocol that even
100%.
gives a loophole where a try can be scored from foul play or from a
100%.
transgression. Then you need to go back to your rule book and say, we made a serious mistake in our standard operating procedures. We need to allow the referee to go back. You cannot have a try being scored in a World Cup final from a knock-on because your rule book only allows us to go back to a certain point. It's absolutely absurd.
And then you have the technology to go back 10 phases. So at some point you have the technology to go back that phases. So then, if 2 phases almost seems too little. If it has to be 10 phases or 8 phases, which allows that enough time for advantage to be played. So if anything was happening, then they could have still scored that try. But now that 2 phases, that limit that it creates, it goes against what technology brings you, and technology allows you to go back way further. A good point, Danny.
Up until the last stoppage.
Yeah, 100%.
And now the big question would be, if World Rugby would then, let's say, have a post-mortem of the Rugby World Cup final, surely it's in camera, it is confidential, and they would say, based on that and this and that, we've come to this conclusion, we had 3 mistakes, we could have done this better. How does that information even gets into the public domain? You have journalists writing about it. Surely there should be a confidential clause. I don't believe that New Zealand inquired about it and then there was a statement from World Rugby saying, listen, Wayne Barnes made a mistake, that try should have stood. My assumption is someone leaked this information and said, in a closed meeting, there was confirmation that Wayne Barnes made a mistake. And that information leaked. Because did World Rugby make a statement there, Barrick, or did I miss it at all?
They did. They made a statement afterwards saying that.
Afterwards, correct.
Afterwards,
yeah.
Because the thing is, at the end of the day, it is, and you look at the integrity of without, we question a lot of times the integrity of a referee, but with all the fake news going around, we have to interrogate journals as well, guys. Let's be honest now, because some guys are either doing it for sensationalism. That was one side to stir the pot, and look at one story how it just like a wildfire across the world. So whether it's right or wrong, then the onus is on that journal to come here and say, okay, this is my source. This is the person. You can't just make a bold statement and not back it up with a person. Then that person should come to the fore. If it was, one of the board members of World Rugby, they said so, then that person should be named. Because at the end of it just ends up creating controversy across the world, and just making, souring a lot of things, what was a fantastic final, game that could have gone either way. And, at that point in time, as a rugby follower, it was a knock-on, guys. It was a knock-on. Whether it was 2 or 4 phases, it was a knock-on. So
clear.
Let's now end kind of the debates about it. It was a knock-on, 4 phases, 5 phases, whatever it may be. It was a knock-on, and the try was disallowed. And I think I saw a few memes earlier in the week. I think they some people were saying they have to investigate Ruben Kruger's try in 1995, because that was also a try, because we can go back now and point fingers and look at certain.
It's just senseless.
Yeah,
it's just senseless.
Yeah.
The Springboks are the world champions. They have gone on this massive tour, bringing hope to a nation. And yes, you want these types of things to be natural in games, because we don't want robots and computerized efforts cleaning out all the mistakes. You want human beings in charge of games being able to give their best. And we understand there will be mistakes. And sometimes these mistakes are costly. But to have something like this that is so clear as a knock-on, and then coming out and saying, based on our protocols or based on standard operating procedures, it should have been handled this way, and that try should have been awarded based on the protocols or the procedural framework of the rule book. You are actually saying that you can score a knock-on try, and my rules leave a window for those types of things to happen. But for them, they can cry all they want. We will be the World Cup champions for the next 4 years, and hopefully come 4 years time, we'll have a team once again to defend and bring it home 3 years, 3 times in a row. I think that will be a record in itself. No one else has done that before, so we're hoping to do that from our side. So World Rugby come out.
And just to say, Heini, guys, whoever decided to go and steal the World Cup, asseblief, steal citizens in the comments. Who do you think it was? Yeah, who was it? Was it I don't mention any names, but let us know in the comments who you think it might have been.
All Black supporters.
Hey, it could have been Italian also. We never know.
No, it doesn't matter. Let's hope that those people are brought to book. I do understand that they got access to the officers and there are footage that's going around. But sad moment. But luckily, according to the reports received, die Wêreldbeker himself, lyk my, hy is in 'n spesiale vertrekkie where no one gets access. That was kept safe. But the people will go to extremes to get their hand on the William Webb Ellis Trophy in this case. Let's move on swiftly before we bring you the big announcement. We must obviously acknowledge the Super Brew sponsors. We had a few sponsors. Little did we know, and we could not have imagined this, that our winner would come from a different country. Our winner would be based South African born, but he comes from New Zealand, merely walking away with the title. And we as sponsors obviously got a few prizes. And this prize, the 2 prizes that we did get prior to the Rugby World Cup, sponsored by 2 photography companies. Unfortunately, Melly, this will not work for you because it's a photo shoot, a family photo shoot. In both cases, one is a family photo shoot, other one is a business photo shoot. So we will then make a plan, Melly, to get a courier to you. There we have the Super Brew sponsors, Jewel Blue Images, photographies, obviously giving us a family photo shoot for 2 hours, and then also another company called Light Lounge Productions in-studio business profile photo shoot to the value of 1,000 Rand. So, Barrick, what we are going to do, we said that we will give this to the silver and bronze medalists. Is that correct? Those 2 photo shoots will then go to the silver and bronze medalists, Jack Jacobs and Dane Carlsen will win the photo shoots respectively. And then Miali, my man from New Zealand, we will get
champion
a courier to deliver some proudly South African wines to your house in New Zealand for your championship award for winning the Super Brew Rugby World Cup Super Brew Pool for Têkkel. Lekker Miali, well done. So all of the winners, we will be in touch with you this week just to try and assess where are you from, how do we get this the vouchers to you, and then to Melly, obviously just getting your address to make sure that you get proudly Cape Townian and South African wine delivered to your doorstep. Daar het ons net hier. Kijk, daar het ek gekom 26ste en LB. Ja, mooi gedoen man, in 8ste plek. Maar volgende jaar moet ons aan ons eie pool wen hè. Ons kan nie
net wag, hy nie wag. Hy is nou soos die Proteas nou lyk dit my, want hy elke toernooi wat hy sê nee, jy gaan nou,
Ja, nee, next time. Next time. Ja, man, daai ding is nie vir my nie, jong. Ek het nou al getraai, maar lyk my Super Brew is net nie vir my nie. Richard Erasmus, doen dinge. Ja, kyk, John Kerr was een van die ouens. Hy was aan bitterbeek onthou. Dit is een van die ouens wat die Springbokke afgeskryf het reg van die begin af, hè. So ja, John Kerr wat ook gedink word van jy weet van daai inbraak, maar ja, nee, kyk, ons is net bly dat ons rugby trophy toer was 'n groot sukses in baie van die dele, in meeste van die dele. Our supporters came out and it was a joyous time, and we will always have this naysayers now coming saying, it should have been this, it should have been that. I believe that the All Blacks had a chance, even with 14 men on the field, they still had a chance to beat the Boks. They need to look into that mirror and ask themselves, where did things go wrong for us? It started off with a red card, but even with that, in the second half, they really took it to the Springboks. They had a few missed opportunities, the missed penalty kick, where they went for the corner. So, before you get to the referee in Wayne Barnes, whom I believe, Barrick had a fantastic game. Brilliant game. Before you get to them, I think there's a lot of other factors that the All Blacks can really zoom into and ask themselves the real questions as to why they lost that game.
Yeah, and it just makes next year's Rugby Championship so interesting. It's going to be a new phase, it's going to be an opportunity for the All Blacks to show, what is in them, and maybe take some revenge, possibly. But also for the Boks to show that 1 point wasn't just a fluke. They the Boks of all the teams they played, the 5 of the top 6 teams they played, and they lost one of them against one of them. And no other team has been able to play the top 6 teams in a World Cup. And I think from all the World Cups we've managed. I think this was the toughest one, and hands down, outside of '95, this was probably, I think, the toughest draw that we've had, and we won the World Cup, guys. So if you look at what the All Blacks, how they performed, they might have beaten 96 odd against the Italians, and they didn't win them the World Cup, guys. And that's the honest truth. It's winning when it matters, and I think we're using the same, almost comb with the Proteas, for example, is winning when it matters, and the Proteas
they lose when it matters.
Proteas lose when it matters, but it comes down to, I think, just the mental side of things. I think based on all in all, I think the Boks were just hungry enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's testament to Peter Steff. I think that tackle count in the final just shows, Faf wasn't necessarily our best choice, as the Têkkel team at number 9, but for that final, he was the best player, and he showed himself. He's absolutely brilliant on tackling, doing charge downs, ankle taps. He was brilliant, and you can't take, you have to give credit where credit is due. He's been brilliant, and I think that's what the All Blacks haven't gotten to yet is, defense. I think defense is where it all started for us. And I think I'm very excited about next year, and where Mani can take us, for example, as the next generation, and where that's going to lead us, having that dynamic edge. I think we're going to be, we could be in a very dominant season, I hope, going into this next 4-year cycle.
No, for sure. We're all excited. And then to close it off, we're obviously going to keep our cards close to our chest, because we were asked to not give too much away, but we're going to give you a sneak peek that there's big news, Alberic. So a few big news, big announcement. The Têkkel team tomorrow will be somewhere in Cape Town.
Yep.
Somewhere in Cape Town. Tomorrow morning early, we'll be somewhere in Cape Town, filming and being part of the media team to do a very historic event. Yeah.
So, guys, so we'll be, Chis and Colby will be active tomorrow doing some community work. So the Têkkel team will be there, and we'll be there, and we'll be able to ask some few questions. So, guys, please, if there's, we'll have a minute or two to chat to him. If there's any questions you guys wanna ask him, please send it to us. We'll want to throw it at him. So give us your best question. What was his favorite try? What was his favorite moment of the World Cup? Whatever it may be. Send us your questions, and we'll ask it to him, and also mention your name. So please, guys, we have less than 12 hours, or I would say
12
less than
hours.
11 hours. Yeah, 11 hours to send us your questions. And then, yeah, we'll pop the team. So you can either drop it on our Facebook page. We'll put up a link tonight. And then you guys can just let us know what your question is, and we'll ask him.
Yeah, now super excited to meet Cheslin Colby tomorrow morning early. We'll be in Cape Town. Obviously, you know, we're not going to tell you exactly where, but we'll be there, part of the media team, and really enjoying how Cheslin gives back. This is a real hero from the area where he comes from, a real hero in Cape Town for the Stormers, for Western Province. We know he's ploying his trade overseas, but he is certainly one of the best rugby players on the planet at the moment. Hot property, and he had a very, very, very good final against the All Blacks. I think one of the superstars of that final. He got off late because of a yellow card, but he did enough to see it through for the Boks. And tomorrow we'll be rubbing shoulders. Ambrose, what they say, Cheslin, binne buite. Yeah, you know, Twinkle Toes, a great player. And, you know, we've seen the very best of Cheslin in the green and gold, and we're hoping that we'll see a few more. And hopefully he'll be able to groom the likes of Kurtley Arends, Kainan Moody, to be as good as influential as a player, not only on the field. If you know Cheslin's story, you will probably understand why a lot of coaches wrote him off. And some coach, a very intelligent coach, told him to go and play scrum half, to play test rugby. He is now one of the very best outside backs in the world, and a multiple Rugby World Cup champion. Cheslin Colby. Size doesn't matter. It's all about the fight in the heart. And who knows, maybe one day you listening, your children or your grandchildren, or even yourself listening, can pick up World Jordan in a Rugby World Cup final. You only weigh about 80 kgs. Hy het ou amper gat omkeer gedraai. En dit is ons Cheslin Colby wat ons ken. So môre, LB, gaan ons lekker met Chessie gesels. So kry hy vrae in. En dan kan ons dit vir hom post.
Yeah, send it to us. We'll put a link on Facebook, and then just send us your comments, your question in the comment section, and we'll choose the best 3, and we'll ask him and let you guys know. And we'll obviously film it so you guys can see it next week on next week's show.
Next week, Thursday, 8 o'clock, we'll show you what went down with Cheslin Colby, and then obviously we will know who walked away with the title of the ICC Cricket World Cup champs for 2023. I can promise you with confidence it will not be the Proteas, but
hoe het jy gaan hy sê? Ek het geweet. Just rub it salty, man.
Ja. But LB, was lekker om te gesels. En kom ons hoop dat is of India of Australia, you know? I will go with the Indian teams. I'm gonna back the Indians to beat. I don't like the Australians at all in any sport. I just have a dislike with them. So let's back the Indians. But obviously the Indians, they are the favorite going into this one.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, we'll do some filming and bring it live to you at Têkkel Chat op YouTube, op Facebook, op Twitter. En het jy dit subscribe, ouens, praat met ons op Facebook, we are live, ons wil van jou ook hoor. Ons is daar en post jou videoetjies, jou fotootjies, gaan lekker wees. LB, tot volgende week.